Hello, and welcome to another video about the Macintosh SE30. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the cathode ray tube used inside the Macintosh SE30. Here it is. I believe this to be a 7-inch display. I believe so anyway. Initially this is a 7-inch display. They're quite commonly used in all of the compact Macs. Now, the trouble is with these is that mostly these get screen burn and they get damaged because people are quite often careless for the necks of the CRT display. And by that I mean that the neck board which connects, which has the heater voltages for the heater inside, and has the cathode, it has the screen grid as well. Initially, what sometimes happens is because the neck is so close to where the SCSI hard drive cable and the floppy disk drive cable is connected, sometimes it's quite easy to bash on this, which causes initially this, which is it's sort of like a hole which I suppose they use to create the vacuum and then seal it to break, to go to air, which obviously ruins the vacuum, which makes this completely useless. So I thought, well, could I alternatively run it off a different CRT? Is it possible to use an LCD display? I don't really like LCD displays that often in vintage machines, so I started to think, okay, well, would I be able to run a bigger CRT screen off the SE's analog board? So that got me thinking. Okay, so with that thought in my head, I looked at the model number on this. It's like a reference number you use. Didn't find a lot of information about this, to be honest. But initially I needed to find three things. I needed to find the EHT voltage required to run this CRT, which is distributed out of the line output transformer, given at a certain frequency, 23 hertz or something. That goes to the anode, and then connected to earth through the metal casing. There's also a cathode at the back of there where it connects to, but it's not a decent connection for proper use. It does create quite a bit. It does create the ripple effect on the screen if you don't have a proper earth, which is why there's a lug up here. The wire, that's basically earth. It's a common point for the negative side. Anyway, so you need the HT. You also need the correct screen voltage, otherwise you'll just blow the cathode. And filament voltages, which is your heaters, I suppose, which commonly does normally does 6.3 volts anyway on these displays. I've never found any that's lower, unless we're going to go back to something from the 1940s and 50s and possibly earlier. So, okay, with that in mind, I went to look around my workshop and I found the cathode ray tube. Particularly this one out of an old 1970s transistor television which ran off 12 volts. I've done a few EHT readings. I found my old test probe and I looked up the data sheet on this display and found that it was a fairly decent match. This one's a 12-inch display, fairly bigger than the 7-inch, a lot more crisper, a lot more nicer, has very good emissions on it. Screen voltages were a little bit high for this, so it did short the cathode, or it blew the cathode, and it cut the voltage off, so I had to change the resistive cut-off pot to fit the what the voltage needed. And I must say, what one bodge job I did do was the earth wire, which went to the lug, which would fasten it on, which would fasten the CRT on the bracket on the front plate. I just connected up to here on the surface. But after some adjustments, just turn this on here. I am fairly happy to say it works, and works quite well. So this is, apart from the display, it's a standard SE30 with some upgraded RAM. I think I might have discussed this before. I've done some adjustments on the screen, and obviously it's going to be the same resolution. You can modify the circuit, so you can try and push a higher resolution, although I wouldn't. I mean, it's possible to try and get some scaling software for macOS, but the image is so crisp, I wouldn't know why you'd want to do that anyway. So my Mac SE30 is running System 7.5. I believe it's the B version, after doing some digging, which initially means that it doesn't have the control strip, although I thought it did, but it doesn't for some reason. I really like the control strip. So it's going to go straight into this screensaver here. Now initially what I'm planning to do is house this in a smaller form factored case, reminiscent to the BBC Micro's cube type display, sort of like a European style thing where the CRT sort of sticks out a little. I did ask on the Lower Mac Facebook page whether or not this is possible. No one knew. People kept on suggesting to use an expansion card which would put out a VGA signal, but then that would mean I'd need to have a VGA CRT display. I mean, yes, it's colour, okay, but it's what I'm looking for here is compact design. I looked on the analog board. I'm able to cut it in half, as most of it is just the common point, or the ground plane, whatever you want to call it, and the only connections that run through that are the brightness pot, which I can rewire anyway, so that would save some space. The CRT isn't that long either, so I'm fairly certain I can get it into a small box. Yeah, it's nice. I'm going to do some heavy modifications on this, try and get that 1 gig drive to work, try and upgrade the RAM, add a 32-bit ROM support, because natively it does support 32-bit, but you need an extension, and I looked up online where you can actually purchase a 32-bit enabled straight out of the box ROM, which allows you to stick up to 32 megabytes, 128 megabytes of RAM, which is nice. Let's go back into the desktop here. This is no trick, by the way. This does work fairly well, and it's fairly crisp. I'm really happy about it. My Mac has 8 megabytes of RAM. It's a standard SE30. It has a 80 megabyte hard drive, which I just found and just installed System 7.5 on here. It works fairly well. Load up Microsoft Word on here. But the one thing I like about this display is it has a really good black colour on it. For black and white images, it's amazing, which is why I picked this display. I was going to use an older display, CRT display from the 1950s, but I couldn't find my ion trap for it, and I had to modify the low tension for the filaments. EHT was about the same anyway. We go down to Microsoft Word. Now, there has been a conspiracy that this was not going to work at all. I posted this, an image of this working, on the Lowen Mac page on Facebook, and one guy said that he cannot believe that it works. Oh no, a bus error. It's not very nice. Some faulty RAM. And yeah, no, he didn't think it was going to work at all. I mean, it shouldn't really be working. His excuse was that line output transformer puts out a certain frequency, which is not compatible with normal displays. But I again done some digging and some research. I was going to put a modified line output transformer, so remove the one that's on here and use one from a television. Actually, this one, the one that I took the CRT display out of, because the voltages are fairly the same. It's in fact the oscillator that I need to change, the oscillator IC, or just modify it with a few capacitors to change the frequency a little. Yeah, no, everything works fine, because it acts as an all television signal initially that's sent to the CRT. In that case, it doesn't work like a vector image. Vector CRTs are a little bit different, but that's not what we're dealing with here. But yeah, no, this is my SE30 running a 12-inch cathode ray tube. I thought about modifying a colour display and getting it to produce a green image using the green cathode. That would need a fair bit more work done, although I'm happy as it is, as this is at the moment. I don't really want to go modifying anything fairly thorough. The next step is to lengthen the cables a bit, cut down the board and create a design, and I'll be doing that in the next video. I'll also be showing you some tips and tricks on ways to get your SE30 running without replacing every capacitor ever on the board, because when you do that you do create a lot of other issues, and I'll show you a detailed way on how to properly clean a logic board. Some people like to just wash them, but see, the point is with washing is if you have a capacitor which is leaking, there's obviously space for water to go inside, especially soapy water which is conductive. So I'll be showing you a proper way to clean your logic board. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the description below, in the comment section below. And yes, thank you for watching. Goodbye.